Living in harmony is possible if you know your emotions and how to handle them. I am Dr. Carmen Roman, and I will share with you the current psychology by myself or by interviewing experts who will inspire you. Learn how to live a life of fullness and how to recover your emotional harmony. Welcome to Emotions in Harmony. Hola, mis queridos amigos en Harmony. We are here today with a very luxury guest. So we have Kwame Christian. You probably hear a lot about him before. Kwame is an attorney and mediator. He's the director of the American Institute for an American Negotiation Institute. Of course, he conducts negotiation and conflict management workshops around the country. What I like about Kwame is that he has a bachelor's degree in psychology, he has a master in public policy, and then he has a law degree. So he has a podcast, and his podcast has been listened to like a million times. I think we passed a million times, yeah, Kwame, right now.
Yep.
And he's here with us to share his knowledge. I asked him specifically to teach us how to mediate, especially when life depends on it, like when our job, our salary, is sometimes our life if we are immigrants in this country. Yeah, and he's professor in the Ohio State University in the School of Law. And of course, he's the author of the best-selling book, Nobody Will Play With Me, How to Use Compassionate Curiosity to Find Confidence in Conflict. And please go and visit his TED Talk. The TED Talk is Finding Confidence in Conflict. Was the most popular TED Talk on the topic of conflict in 2017. So his podcast is called Negotiate Anything. Please go and listen because I have been having fun the last 2 weeks listening to his episodes. Welcome, Kwame. How are you?
Hey, thank you for having me, Carmen. I appreciate it. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
So tell me everything, please, everything you can in the next 26 minutes.
Well, that is going to be difficult to do, but I'll try my
I
best.
know. So tell me how we overcome fear when we start a negotiation.
Yeah, I think the first part when it comes to overcoming fear is recognizing that fear is normal. It is a very normal and very human response to be afraid of these conversations because when you think about it, there is a lot on the line, whether it's at work, negotiating for salary, negotiating for better conditions, or at home, negotiating with your spouse, your children, your family. These conversations are very, very important. So it is natural to be scared at times. And so the first way that we get over the fear is by first recognizing that we have the fear, and then second, acknowledging that it's okay to have the fear, but then trying to dig deeply by ourselves why it is that we're afraid. What is it that's triggering this fear? And then figure out what it is on the other side of the conversation that we're trying to do. Because usually, if we're afraid, it's because we know that there's something important at stake in the conversation. And we want to focus on that goal and try to use that goal to motivate us to actually have the conversation. Because the biggest mistake that we make in these conversations is that we don't have them. So the first step is taking the initiative and having that conversation. And the more you do it, the stronger and more confident you'll become.
Huh. So I will tell you a little secret, Kwame. It took me like 2 years to invite you to this podcast because of my fear of, I know you will say yes, I knew, because I met you in person 2 years ago, yeah? But still, so moving us with the fear is what you say. And yeah, here is the confession. It took me 2 years to overcome this fear. I love that. Let's at least have the conversation. This is what you say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think about when it comes to confidence is confidence really is the belief that no matter what, I'm going to find a way to try to make this okay. And so if we, for instance, with your example, if you have the conversation with me and I say no, maybe I'm actually a mean person and I say no, then you realize that, okay, what happens after that? Oh, then I just invite somebody else to be on the show. And then when you project into the future after the conversation, you typically realize, oh, really, it's not that bad. And the thing is, when we get scared, we focus on the present moment too much. But I try to take a longer term perspective. In 10 years, will I be proud of the fact that I actually had this conversation? Or would I be proud of the fact that I let the fear push me away from having the conversation? Usually, when you think about it in terms of regret, what you're missing out on, we regret the things that we didn't do a lot more than the things that we did do. Because if we look back and we made a mistake, we could say to ourselves, at least I tried. And so I want to always make sure that I'm opting to do the things that the future version of myself will respect. And usually that leads me to having these difficult conversations.
So do it. One thing is just do it, yeah? In honoring your 10-year future self, yeah? So honor that person. And then what about, Kwame, if I am really literally outside with less power? Like if I am the undocumented versus my documented boss, or if I have no school and my boss is just, or the person who I am cleaning the house is just somebody really important. What about if I really don't have the power?
Yes, no, that is a very, very good, very good point. And so the key is to find your power. Where does it come from? Because a lot of times when we come to these conversations, we're focused on where we are lacking, what we don't have. I don't have an education. I don't have money. I don't have legal immigration status. And so we focus on those things. And coming from a psychological perspective, again, that's just how the brain works. We are prone to think about the negative things a lot more than the positive things, because that's what keeps us alive, because bad things can kill us faster. So that's why our brains naturally focus on the negative things. But then you have to consider, what are the positives that we have to offer in that situation? So think about a situation if you are, number one, undocumented. You have the gender gap where you might be working for a male. That is another gender gap, a gender issue that we need to address. Somebody who has more money and you're in a cleaning position and you don't have the legal status like I mentioned before. So where does your power come from? Your power comes from trust, because more so than anything else, you have to think about it. That person doesn't just want the job done. They want the job done by somebody that they can trust. And the trust comes not only by your ability to do the work, but also the ability to believe that you will do the work in a way that is not detrimental to them. So when somebody's opening up their house to you, they're making themselves vulnerable. And so at the beginning of the conversation, what I would say is I would reaffirm the relationship. I would take the time and say, listen, first of all, I want to say that I've really appreciated this opportunity and the time that I've spent with you and your family. I've gotten to know your wife, I've gotten to know your children, and it's been great. And I wanted to let you know that since I consider you part of my family, I wanted to let you know that there's been something that's been bothering me, and I want to know if it is okay if I have that conversation with you. And so here's the thing that happens. Nobody is going to say no to that situation, right? The way that you frame it, you reaffirm the relationship, and then you say, may I please have this conversation? They're going to say, of course. And so now you're operating with their permission, because now in their mind, they're saying, I have now invited this conversation. It was not sprung upon me. And then you say, this is the situation that I'm experiencing, and it is having this impact on me. That's it. That's it.
That's how the conversation starts. I am so glad that you expand in this idea that I have, because sometimes I teach them to repeat after me, like, I will take care of the keys of your house. I will take care of your house, like it was mine, yeah? And it's true, it's like, I am telling them they are paying you for being confident, for, in Spanish, la confianza, the trust, you say, the trust that they can put on you. And very often, more often that I would like to admit, more of my clients, they don't even start the conversation because they truly believe they cannot even hold the conversation. And we are talking here also about language barriers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We are
Mm-hmm.
talking about somebody who doesn't speak the English or somehow, but when you see into their eyes, they have so much sometimes honesty and purity into their presence that they can bring that too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And so for me, as somebody who I speak Spanish at a level very, very low, but I can speak a little bit, especially when it's a difficult conversation, I prefer to write. Sometimes it's
Uh-huh.
easier for me to write it out.
Uh-huh.
And if it's one of those difficult conversations and you want to make sure that you're saying the things the right way, then maybe writing it out is a better way to at least start the conversation, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not just the language barrier. It's also the fact that it's a heavy conversation. You have that element of fear.
Mm-hmm.
So psychologically, emotionally, you're not going to be performing at your best.
Yeah.
And so I remember for me, when I do public speaking, I speak all over the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do for my living when it comes to these negotiation and conflict resolution workshops.
Uh-huh.
However, if you put me in front of an audience
Uh-huh.
of 10 people and you ask me to speak in Spanish, I will be visibly shaking
Uh-huh.
because I'm not as confident in that language. And so sometimes if it's a difficult conversation and that is an additional barrier that you face, writing it out beforehand might be a better way to communicate it.
And just to let them know, you are going to try for us. You
I
are
will
going to try
try.
the Spanish for us because because it's like, yeah, I think you being so kind in trying is also telling them, see, we can do it. We can do it. We can stretch ourselves. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, when it comes to our comfort zones, our comfort zone is, let's say it's like this circle,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't expand until it's stretched. It's
Yes.
an uncomfortable process.
Yeah.
And here's the problem. A lot of people feel that discomfort and they take it as a signal that I'm doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
When in fact, that discomfort is a signal that they're moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
So pain, when it comes to pain in the body, for instance, the reason that we feel pain, the reason why that's an important bodily process is that if I'm touching a hot stove, I want to feel that pain and I want to pull back in case my body is receiving damage. I want to protect my body from damage.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I'm in the gym and I'm working out, I will feel pain, and often we will use that pain as a signal to stop, when in fact it's not pain that is damage, it's
Mm-hmm.
pain that is a signal of growth. And
Yeah.
so when we feel that pain, we don't need to automatically retract. We need to analyze it and see whether this is pain associated with damage or pain associated with growth. And if it's growth, the only way we can push forward and move forward and advance and get to that next level is if we continue to feel that level of discomfort.
Yeah. And anxiety is painful too. And they
Hmm.
stop breathing and they get their chest like squished. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's
yeah.
that's something to live with that too. Yeah.
And the pain is real. The
Yes.
pain is real.
Yeah.
Emotional pain is real. Here's an interesting study.
Mm-hmm.
The one of the most painful things that you can experience is the rejection of something that you're asking for, because in our minds it doesn't just feel like a rejection of what we're asking for, it also feels like a rejection of ourselves. And what they found is that the pain associated with rejection is so real that in studies it has been diminished by giving people Tylenol, just like you would a real pain. So if my arm hurts, I take Tylenol, it feels better. With rejection, you
Uh-huh.
take pain relievers and it feels better. That's how real the pain is. And so a lot of times people brush off emotions and say, oh, these emotions aren't real, just push through it, it's nothing. No, 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 no. That's not good advice. You should push through it, but it isn't nothing.
Yeah.
It is definitely something.
Wow. And okay, what about if I say, okay, I'm going to do it, and now I am here and I am in a power struggle? What about
Hmm.
if the person is fighting back and it clearly is power struggle?
Hmm. Well, two things. Thing number one, remember when people are afraid, they have the three fear responses: fight, flight, and freeze. So, flight, that means they're conflict avoidant, they try to avoid the conflict. um, fight, obviously, that's when they become aggressive. And freeze, that's where you become silent, you don't speak up for yourself, and the conversation is happening, and you're just essentially observing it, not participating in it. And so, if somebody is becoming aggressive with you, you have to realize that you're not dealing with a person who is thinking on a level-headed playing field right now. They're not thinking clearly. They have registered what you've done or said as a threat, and they're fighting you. And so instead, what you need to do is you need to take a step back and acknowledge the emotion. And so I have a process called the compassionate curiosity framework. And so the first step is acknowledge emotions, then get curious with compassion, and then engage in joint problem solving. So if somebody's becoming aggressive, you take a step back and say, it seems as though you're really frustrated about this situation. Can you please tell me a little bit more about what you're experiencing or how you see it? And so by taking the time to label the emotion, saying you're frustrated, you're angry, I can see that. It seems as though, then oftentimes they calm down because they'll explain why they feel that way. Yeah, I'm frustrated because it
Mm-hmm.
seems as though you're not appreciating what I'm giving to you, and it makes me upset about the situation. Okay, can you tell me more about that? And you get them to explain themselves. And what you're finding is through this process, their emotional level will start to calm down. They'll start to get back to a level playing field. And so that's not the natural response to the conversation. If somebody fights you, you typically want to either fight back or run away. But instead, we have to sit with that emotion as well, their emotions, and give them an opportunity to decompress. Or option number two, you realize they are too emotional to have this conversation, and you just say, listen, thank you so much for taking the time to explain how you're feeling about this situation. This was new information to me, so I need to think through this before I continue the conversation. Let's come back tomorrow and have that conversation because they're too emotional to have this conversation. Let's come back at another time when they're a little bit calmer.
You know what? Now that you are talking, I am realizing that also there is another layer of complexity. Like some of these families of these men who do gardening or waitress in a restaurant or something, um, they they need to learn also the level of the words. Yeah, they
Mm-hmm.
they are more physical. Like let's go and let's do it, and I will show you how I will clean your house, and then you tell me how much you want to pay. But this, what you are saying is, let's get sophisticated in the
Yeah,
words, in the conversation. Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And here is something that is something important to consider. Women and minorities typically, when it comes to business decisions,
Mm-hmm.
they usually underprice themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
so if everybody else is charging here, we
Yeah.
naturally say, hey, I'm going to charge here. I'm going to be
Yes.
the discount low cost
Yeah.
service. And we start there voluntarily.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to work really
Mm-hmm.
hard just to get to the same level eventually, hopefully, maybe. But the problem is that not only do we start low, but we're also afraid to ask. So we
Mm-hmm.
never get up there. And people aren't voluntarily going to say,
Yeah.
hey, Carmen, you've been doing a good job. Let me pay you more. If you're working really hard for this much money, and I know you're going to keep working hard for this much money, I'm not going to voluntarily say, here's that much money,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to start the conversation at a different place.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's totally true. And I see over and over more in women and teenagers, and it's more difficult to price themselves since the very beginning.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
here's the thing, when somebody says no, that's not the end of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the end of the conversation. So
Yeah.
if the market rate is here,
Uh-huh.
and you actually say, hey, actually, I cost this much,
Uh-huh.
and they say, no, I can't afford that. And then you say, well, what does work for you? Most likely, they're going to say, well, I can do this.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'll do that. And you're winning. Because that's the thing. We're always afraid of no. But when I'm
Yeah.
working with my clients and in my personal negotiations, I need to hear them say no,
Uh-huh.
because if all I get is a yes, then I don't know how high I could have gone. I could have
Yes.
gotten more.
Uh-huh.
And so if you can do more for your family, put more food on the table and
Uh-huh.
get more opportunities for them, not by working harder, but by
Uh-huh.
simply
Uh-huh.
asking for more money,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah. I have a quick example for you. I was working in therapy with one mechanic, and we were talking about him having free time for his children, yeah? So he
Hmm.
say, I do $20 an hour. And I say, well, in your market, we research the market, and your market is $36, your skills. And he was like, no, 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 Carmen, I cannot do that, yeah? So we bring the wife into the session, and the wife say, at least let's ask for 33. So we had couple sessions, he repeating to me, 33, 33, 33. Yeah. So he goes to another person, to another company, and he asks 33. And he's so scared and ready to fight and explain, yeah. And he say
Hmm.
$33, and they say yes. And he was like, my therapist told me 36 and said I could have paid you 36, but you didn't ask.
Right.
Yeah, it's like
Exactly.
sometimes it's our fears inside.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
another issue is that I found is that it's a lack of confidence because we don't value ourselves the way that we should. Because I'm not sure about his specific situation, but sometimes people say, if my market rate is 36, that's what the
Mm-hmm.
market is saying. But inside,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm 25.
Yeah.
And so I'm not even convinced of my
Yes.
value at 36. And if
Yeah.
I'm not convinced of 36, how can I convincingly ask somebody else for
Yeah.
$36? And so I think the example that you gave is fantastic because it took a lot of time in private to
Mm-hmm.
work up to build that confidence so
Yeah.
you could say it with confidence when it mattered.
Yeah. And the only reason he agreed to practice with me is because remember, we want time with your children. Remember, we want this free time. You cannot have two jobs. That was the only way he agreed to negotiate, to practice with me for several sessions.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Who does he value more? He
Mm-hmm.
probably values his family more than
Mm-hmm.
himself. And so it
Yes.
was a brilliant technique that you used because if you focus on not yourself, but the people you're fighting for,
Uh-huh.
oftentimes that is the trick that you need to advocate for yourself at a higher level because you care about your family, you care about your spouse, your children, and if you say to yourself, I'm getting this money for them, it
Mm-hmm.
makes it more likely for you to approach the conversation with the confidence you need to get what you deserve out of the situation.
Uh-huh. So I have been really learning a lot from you the last couple of weeks that I am listening to the podcast and your interviews and some videos. So you know what? Actually, if I could have learned before, I will ask you before the 2 years. So what I am learning from you is being compassionate doesn't mean not being brave. Yeah, being compassionate, being brave is together. It can be done together.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's about taking the steps to do what it is that you need to do, while at the same time being empathetic and understanding the
Mm-hmm.
perspectives of the other side. And if you're able to advocate to yourself for yourself while
Mm-hmm.
still keeping a keen eye on the needs and wants of the other side,
Mm-hmm.
that's the perfect position to be in when you're having these conversations. Because if you're able to do that, it's not a battle like this. You can see things from your perspective, you can see things from their perspective, and
Mm-hmm.
that allows you to be creative and word things in a way that would work for them.
So, not to put any pressure, Kwame, but imagine, please, that you have in front of you an audience of these house cleaners, gardeners, salon, the beauty people, and you are going to tell them in the last 1 minute or 2 minutes or something, the time that we have, you are going to tell them something that is important. We have exactly 2 minutes
Okay. In
to
Spanish or in
in
English?
in English, please, and then
In English. Okay.
of course, you will be in Spanish with us. Yeah. So
Okay, perfect. All right. Yeah,
perfect. Two
I was
minutes.
getting nervous. So the first thing is you can do this. That's the number one thing that people need to realize that they can do this. With a lot of these pieces of advice people give, I feel like they're giving recipes to people who are afraid to get in the kitchen. If you don't believe in yourself, it doesn't matter the techniques and tips that I give to you because you just won't use it. So number one needs to come, the number one thing you need to do is believe in yourself first. The next thing is, if you don't know what to say in a conversation, the easiest thing to do is ask a question. Just ask a question. Because if you're asking a question, you're not making a mistake, right? That's the first thing. And the second thing is you're getting more information. And the more information you get out of the conversation, the better able you will be to phrase what you say next in a way that it comports with the needs of the other side.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I learned, of course, I keep learning from you. And I am, I feel like it's contagious, your energy, your hope for us to be learning about how to negotiate. Thank you. Thank you, Christian, and we will have you in Spanish, and you promise us to be in Spanish. Thank you, thank you. We are very excited and jumping here, and we will have you. So thank you for being today with us.
A pleasure.
Mm-hmm. If you guys want to learn from him, we are putting everything in the notes, everything where to find Kwame Christian. And you can also type Kwame Christian in Google, and we are ready. Yeah? Okay. Bye for now. We have reached the end of another episode of the podcast Emotions in Harmony. See you the next week. Visit www.emotionsinharmony.org, where you can subscribe, find the notes, and be in direct contact with me. Thanks for listening.